Hello and welcome to Paul's e-learning podcast. My name is Paul Andrews and this is my podcast about using free and open source tools and technologies to work smarter, not harder. On this week's show, I want to talk about a couple of new additions we've got to the website and also go over, review a 5-hour workshop that I delivered over in Caerphilly ICE a couple of days ago. It's in Caerphilly in South Wales, about how you can use free and open source presentation tools to go basically beyond PowerPoint to do things maybe other people haven't seen yet. Okay then, so let's get straight into it. So first things first, we've added a couple of new things to the site. The first thing that we've added is an upcoming events page. Now the reason behind this is because we're getting invited basically to do a lot of open talks and workshops and seminars, which people are welcome to just kind of like, you know, come in and have a go and participate in. So the one I'm going to talk about in a little bit was the first one, the one we delivered at Caerphilly ICE as part of the Software Alliance Wales' scheme to deliver essentially free and open courses to anyone who wants to learn a little bit more about using technology. But since then, we've been invited to do a couple of other events, and so these are all going on the upcoming events page, which is accessible via the main website. There's a tab rather at the top of the site, which you can click on to access this. And when you do, what will happen is you'll be shown a calendar of upcoming events with all the events that we're going to be presenting at or talking at, and then you can click on each of those events to book yourself a place. So the next event we're going to be running on the calendar is taking place on Friday the 15th of November, and it's called Google Apps for Business. And during this session, we're actually going to be giving an overview of the suite of Google Apps that businesses can use to effectively improve their business, work smarter, streamline their efforts, and all that kind of stuff. So if you do want to, you can have a look at the upcoming event site and see what we're doing and then book yourself in on an event. The other addition we've added to the site this week is we've updated the free antivirus software. Now, for a while, Microsoft had this Security Essentials software, which was a really good antivirus program. But over the last kind of like 12 to 18 months, they've kind of come out and said that actually their antivirus software is to act as a baseline, if you like, for other products. So as a result, basically, there are other better free antivirus tools you can get out there for your Windows machine. Now, the most popular one at the moment is Avast Antivirus. It's free. You can download it for Windows. There's also versions for Android as well. But what you'll find is on the PC and Mac care and maintenance page, a bit of a mouthful, you'll find that if you go there, that we've updated the links to the free antivirus, and now it takes you to a guide by Lifehacker, which lists the 5 best free and low-cost antivirus tools. But say the one that I'm using at the moment is Avast Antivirus because it's completely free and it does the job.
Please hang up and try again.
Okay, so the main thing I want to talk about this week is this presentation that we delivered over at Caerphilly ICE on the 16th of October to businesses and business owners and people that work in industry about how they can deliver more effective and engaging presentations using free and open source tools and technologies. And how this was basically broken down is we used a SlideShare presentation developed by someone called Jesse D, and the presentation is called You Suck at PowerPoint. Now there is a link to this on the webpage that we created. If you want to visit the webpage with all of the notes and the resources on that we delivered on the day, you need to go to bit.ly, that's bit.ly/life after PPT. It's all one word, there's no spaces. So that's bit.ly, bit.ly/life after PPT. And if you go there, you'll be able to see all of the resources that we used on the day, including this excellent presentation by Jesse about how people suck at PowerPoint. And the point it was making is that most of the PowerPoint presentations that are made are really dull and boring, but it's not PowerPoint's fault, it's actually the presenter. And so what Jesse said was there are 5 key things to remember when you are going to be designing and delivering a PowerPoint presentation. So we're going to cover each of these points that Jesse D makes in turn about how to give effective PowerPoint presentations. There are 5 of them. And then the idea is that as I go through each of them, if there are free bits of tools, tools and technologies that you can use to mitigate or solve some of these problems that Jesse mentions, then I'll mention those as well. So the first one Jesse mentions is, he says, a lot of people put too much information on their PowerPoint slides. And this is something that I've seen a lot, particularly, I'm afraid to say, working with academics in universities. And what Jesse says is there is a tendency for people to basically put every single word that they're going to say in their presentation up on the slide. And then, so what they do is they stand in the front of their audience and they proceed to read off all the words that are being shown to the audience on the PowerPoint presentation slide. And the point that Jesse makes is this, and again, I would agree with this entirely. If you're going to do that, if you're going to put every single word up on your PowerPoint presentation slide and then proceed to read it out to your audience, you may as well just put all the words in a handout, print it out and give it to them and tell them to go and read that handout in their own time, because they're going to be able to read and process that information much faster by just reading it than they will by you standing up in front and acting as as a narrator or like a reading from a teleprompter or something. So the point Jesse making is the idea behind a presentation should always be that the slides are there to back you up, but the audience should be listening and watching you. And so one of the points I always make when I'm giving coaching to people about how to make effective presentations is this. I say to them, watch a weather forecast. Because a weather forecast is an excellent example of a presentation, in that the weather forecaster is standing there at the front and they're talking, they're giving the presentation, but behind them they have visuals which support what they're saying, allow them to illustrate things. But what you don't see during a weather forecast is every single word that the weather forecaster is saying being presented on the map in the background. So it's that kind of thing. The idea is about not putting too much information, minimizing the amount of data you put up, and making sure that people are actually focused on you, and whatever you're showing is supporting the themes that you're trying to get across. The next point that Jesse makes, so point number 2, is not enough visuals. This kind of goes hand in hand with the first one, the idea that there's all these PowerPoint slides with text on them. And what he was saying was that you need high quality visuals and lots of them to illustrate your point. And so during the session over at Caerphilly, we looked at a couple of tools that people could use to get free, high-quality visuals and then edit them as they see fit. Now, the first thing we looked at was the Creative Commons search engine, because what a lot of people have a tendency of doing if they want to find a picture will be to go over to Google, do a Google image search basically, and grab the first thing that comes up on the search results. The problem with that being that a lot of these images that you find on the internet are actually subject to copyright. So to get around that, to avoid that, what you need to do is you need to find images that you're allowed to use either under a Creative Commons license or a public domain license. So these are images that the original creators have said can be used for other purposes without having to ask their permission first. So the Creative Commons search engine will let you do this. Now, the web address, if you want to find this, it is linked to on the PowerPoint page, but if you just want to type it into your search engine, the web address you need is search.creativecommons.org. That's search.creativecommons.org. And if you go there, it will give you a search engine that allows you to find these images and videos and sounds that have been licensed under Creative Commons, so you can use them legally in your presentations. And in some circumstances, you will have to give a little credit or a footnote at the bottom of your presentation that says, I got this image from so-and-so. So it's a fantastic resource to find images that you can use. For really high quality images, the one site I recommend, and this is the site we kind of had a look at during the day, is Pixabay. Now, the web address for that is pixabay.com. That's pixabay.com. This is a vast collection of public domain images, so they're not even Creative Commons. You could just use them for any purpose you like, and it's all good. But it's a vast collection of really, really high quality, high resolution photographs and artwork that people can use for anything, basically. So if you are looking for some high resolution visuals for your presentation, check out Pixabay. And finally, we looked at somewhere where you can get icons, because sometimes people want icons in their presentations. And so we had a look at a lovely website called Icon Finder. Now, the web address for that one is Icon Finder, so it's ICONFINDER, iconfinder.net. This lets you, as very similar to Pixabay and the Creative Commons search, but this lets you find high quality icons that you can then use. And some of them you have to pay for, but a lot of them are licensed under Creative Commons and they're free for commercial use. So you can grab one or two icons or a whole set of icons and import all of those into your presentation. So once you've got the images you're going to use, as long as they're licensed under Creative Commons or kind of public domain, you can edit those images as you see fit. And so the last thing we looked at when we were considering kind of how to get images into our presentations was a free tool called PicMonkey. Now, I've talked about PicMonkey on previous podcasts. It's one of my favourite tools. But PicMonkey, the web address for this is picmonkey.com. So it's PICMONKEY.com. And PicMonkey is a free online image editor. It's really, really simple to use, but it basically mitigates the need for things like Photoshop, because anyone can use this free online photo editor to tweak any of the images that they grabbed via the Creative Commons search engine or Pixabay or even Icon Finder. So what we did for the first part of this kind of workshop is I basically said to everyone, hey, let's use these three websites, Creative Commons Search, Pixabay and Icon Finder, to find some images, and then once you've found some images, edit them in PicMonkey and then save the resulting pictures to the desktop, because we're going to use them a little bit later on when we started to build a presentation for ourselves. So if you are looking for high quality images and you want to tweak them, you might want to give those websites a bit of a look. Okay, so the next point on the kind of the things you want to avoid, according to Jesse D, was what he calls visual vomit. And that's basically avoiding naff colour schemes, horrible looking fonts, basically applying a little bit of design, to those presentations. And what Jesse actually recommended was that, yes, you can pay for a designer. If you're not a designer, don't worry about it. You can pay for someone to do nice design. But he was actually saying, you know what, you can, if you find a nice design, you can copy it. You can be inspired. I think that's a polite way of saying steal it, but you can be inspired by it. And so what we did was we had a look at a website where you can find presentations that people have already made, and you can download those presentations as PowerPoint files and then effectively reverse engineer them. So deconstruct them and take the bits that you want and put those bits into your presentation. So the website we looked at was something called SlideShare. Now the web address for this is SlideShare, so it's SlideShare.net, SlideShare.net. And this website is basically, it's a bit like YouTube, but for PowerPoint presentations. And this lets people upload any presentation that they've made and share it with the world. And when they do that, they have the option to say, this presentation cannot be copied or remixed, but a lot of people say, actually, this presentation can be copied and remixed. So if you're lacking inspiration, you can go over to SlideShare, have a search for a presentation that's similar to the one that you've got to give, and then have a look at it and deconstruct it and take out the elements that you want to do. So it can be, it can be quite handy. So after that, we kind of looked at, well, okay, suppose you've found a presentation on SlideShare, and you think, I'm going to have those elements. You found some pictures and you've edited them with PicMonkey. The next thing we looked at was how would you actually build a presentation. And the point was that, the point that Jesse makes in his presentation about how to give effective presentations, there's a lot of mentions of the word presentation here, is that for 22 years or so, PowerPoint has been like the standard for delivering presentations. But that isn't the case anymore. So we looked at 3 alternatives to PowerPoint that you might want to consider. So the first one we looked at was Google Docs presentations. Now, this actually is very similar to PowerPoint, but rather than being a piece of software that you install on your computer, the presentation design software is run free of charge from a web browser. And the interface is almost identical to PowerPoint, except that it's a little bit simpler and, dare I say, it's a little bit easier to use. So if you can use PowerPoint, then you can instantly use this Google Docs presentations from a web browser. Now, the reason you might want to consider doing this, well, there are 2 main reasons. Well, actually 3. The first one is that if you need to design a presentation collaboratively with other people, then Google Docs presentations is a really good choice. Because it's all web-based, effectively what you can do is you can start to design a presentation, and then you can share that presentation with other people who are going to build, the final presentation with you. They are then able to come in and work on the presentation at the same time as you. So you don't have to email the presentation out to people and then make some tweaks and then they send it back to you. You're all editing the same presentation online at the same time. So it's really quite powerful. The second reason you might want to consider using Google Docs presentations is because it is ridiculously simple to insert a video into your presentation. Inserting video into PowerPoint presentations, it is possible, but it is fiddly. Whereas with Google Docs, it literally takes 2 clicks. You go insert and then video, and then you paste in the web address of the video you want to insert. It is that simple. And the third and final reason why you might want to consider using Google Docs is this. Because it's all saved online, if you are giving a presentation somewhere else, you don't need to put your presentation on a memory stick. You can just save it to your Google Drive, and then when you get to your destination, you can log back into your Google Drive via the internet and access and deliver that presentation as you see fit. So it does make life a lot easier for you in terms of collaboratively creating presentations, adding rich multimedia in there, and also being safe and secure in the fact that it's all backed up online and you can access it anytime you want to. Now, the second tool we looked at was something called Powtoon. Now, Powtoon is a free service that lets you create, well, cartoons basically, but they're quite kind of business-based. It's got a load of templates that you can use. For any of you that have ever seen Comicrafts videos by a chap called Lee Lefevre, he does a whole load of videos on YouTube about explaining certain concepts in plain English, and he uses paper craft for this, paper slides. Well, Powtoon lets you kind of simulate that kind of result. It's a free service, but you can make these really nice presentations and really nice videos that look like you've basically got a piece of paper and you've done little cutouts of little characters and you're moving them across the screen, and it's even got graphics of hands that can come up and actually move things into place. So we've actually used Powtoon on our main site on paulselearning.com to create 3 explainer videos that explain our 3 key services to businesses, educational establishments and home users. So if you want to check out Powtoon, please do. If you want to check out some of the videos we've got, you can do that as well. But say Powtoon is really nice for making, it does do presentations, but it is better suited to making kind of standalone videos which you can put onto YouTube. And then the third and final presentation tool we looked at, and this was the main one we spent the day on, was a tool called Prezi. Now, Prezi is a fantastic tool, and it's one that I personally use pretty much every time I'm invited to go and give a keynote at a conference. Prezi is my presentation tool of choice. And what Prezi basically does is that rather than having kind of the PowerPoint or the Google Docs slides point of view where you say, okay, I'm going to have these slides and I'm going to switch from slide to slide, Prezi basically gives you a massive blank canvas and a pretend video camera. If you imagine kind of, for those of you who are old enough to remember kind of like, I don't know, Tony Hart or maybe Art Attack, remember Neil Buchanan, the idea is you have a big bit of paper and you can put all of these various things on it. You can put text on it and pictures and videos and that kind of stuff. And do you remember how they used to do it on the TV show when they were doing sometimes when they were doing a drawing or whatever, they'd have an overhead camera that was pointing straight down so you could see the canvas as to what's going on. Prezi basically works like that, but it allows you to then move the camera and zoom in and zoom out on your presentation. So the idea is you have everything's on one massive slide, but you can zoom in, you can rotate, you can zoom out. So it's actually visually very engaging, providing you don't go overboard. I mean, there is a tendency, and you see this with anything, you see this with PowerPoint as well. When people first start using PowerPoint, they'll use every single transition and the words will drop in one by one and it all gets a bit crazy. Well, people new to Prezi do the same kind of thing. They have the camera doing all these weird and wonderful pans and zooms, and it can make people feel a bit seasick. So you have to kind of watch what you're doing and make sure you're not going crazy. But Prezi is a fantastic tool for presentation. I tend to use it because it allows you to show your audience an overview, a visual overview of what you're going to show them, and then zoom in and explain the finer details. And then at the end of the presentation, you can zoom back out again and show them that big picture. So what we did on the day, we actually spent a lot of time with Prezi. And I actually said to all of the folks that were there, right, I'm going to give you a good chunk of time to start with Prezi and actually make a presentation and incorporate the pictures that you found previously on Pixabay and Icon Finder and Creative Commons Search that you've edited using PicMonkey and actually put those into your presentation. So that took up a lot of the day because I wanted to give everyone a really good kind of hands-on session with Prezi. For those of you who mostly use tablets, there is a free iPad app, but what we found on the day was that although the iPad app is very, very nice for delivering presentations you might have made, it's a bit more fiddly and it lacks some features of the fully fledged presentation editor that you can get free on a computer, on a PC or a Mac within a web browser. So if you are building a presentation, I would recommend you use a normal computer with a web browser. But if you are wanting to give a quick presentation, you can save that presentation to your iPad and then grab the free Prezi app to basically make use of it. And so the last point, and this is where we can kind of concluded the day, and this is the main point, I think, that Jesse makes in his kind of breakdown of what makes an effective presentation. And again, this is something I agree very strongly with, is a lot of presentations are poor because they're not practiced or prepared well enough. The point is that a typical 1 hour presentation, a well-polished 1 hour presentation, the kind of things that you used to see Steve Jobs do, or the kind of things you might see over at TED.com on a daily basis, these presentations, a 1 hour presentation of that quality will normally take up to 30 hours to prepare. So what they were saying was that actually, if you cobble something together, then it's probably not going to be the greatest presentation in the world. So we had a look at a free tool that would allow people to plan and prepare their presentation. And one of them was mind42.com. Again, it's a free website. To get to it, it's just the word mind followed by the digits 4 and 2.com. The point we were making to people was to say, well, look, we've had a look at where you can get nice quality images from and how to edit them. And we've looked at the tools you can use to make these presentations. But actually, before you do any of that, you really need to plan and structure your presentation out first. And whilst you can do that on a piece of paper if you want to, it's easier if you use a free tool like mind42.com to create a mind map. And the reason there are two main reasons for this. The first one is you can share that mind map with other people to get their opinion on the structure of your presentation. So if I've, for example, have been asked to give a keynote, I will plan it out on Mind42 first, and I will then send that plan over to the conference organisers and say, is this what you were looking for? They will then give me some feedback and we'll have a dialogue. And based on that, we'll rejig the mind map. And Mind42 is really great for this because to rejig it, all you do is you click on the thing you want to move and then you drag it over to a new position. So it allows you to reorganise presentations very, very quickly and then send that reorganised presentation, that plan, over to, whoever needs to check it out first. But the point being, you can use mind42.com. It's completely free, works in web browser. And then once you've got that all kind of planned out and locked in, that's the point when you actually then start to build that presentation. So the other thing we kind of looked at about prep was basically that, and this is the most important thing, it's about rehearsing. You've got to rehearse and rehearse and rehearse your presentation to the point where, well, this is what I do. If I'm delivering a big presentation, I rehearse it to the point where I know it off by heart. And if there was a power cut and I didn't have any technology to back me up, I would be fine with that. I just say, well, just give me a pen and I will draw things on, a blackboard or a whiteboard or whatever and deliver that presentation. Jesse basically makes the point that, it's all about, you should be fully prepared to go naked. That's what he says, but I call it a cappella. The idea is, you're doing it with any kind of backup at all. You say that you have to practice presentation mainly because, well, A, you need to make sure it remains within its kind of allotted time frame. And the other main reason, of course, is of practicing your presentation is that so that you can guarantee it's going to run to time, because there's nothing worse than being in the audience and, having a presenter that goes on and on and on and on and over their time limit. And if you're a conference organizer, it's really annoying. So you have to kind of get like a shepherd's crook and kind of like, build their Muppets and put it around their neck and drag them off the thing. So yeah, so those are the main points that Jesse was raising. So I'll just recap those again. So he was saying that, to have an effective presentation, you need to avoid doing the following. You need to avoid giving too much information out on the slides. So your audience members have to watch you and not be reading text off the slides all the time. You need to have high quality visuals and lots of them to illustrate your point. You need to avoid the visual vomit. Some nice colour schemes, nice fonts, make sure it's all laid out properly. Steal designs off SlideShare if you need to. And then prepare and practice and rehearse that presentation so it's really, really slick. So those are the main points that Jesse had. And then after that, we looked at a couple of more tools that people could use to enhance their presentations. The first one was using Twitter to enable a process which is known as back channeling. And the idea behind this is that you use the Twitter to define a hashtag, and you can say to people, if you've got any questions during the presentation or after the presentation, you can use Twitter with that hashtag to ask me a question. And then you can either choose whether or not you want to engage with those questions live in the presentation. A bit scary, but it's very cool if you can do it. Or what a lot of people will do is they will say, well, I will respond to all of those questions after the presentation, kind of, after the event, a little bit later on in the day. So we've got links on this page, on this effective presentations page, to how to get started with back channeling. And then the other thing we looked at was how people could use a free tool called Poll Everywhere. So the web address for that is just POLLEVERY polleverywhere.com, and that lets people create live interactive polls that their audience can vote on, used by basically sending a text or using Twitter or using the internet to answer questions that you pose to them. And then the answers to all those questions are graphed in real time, and those graphs can be embedded live either into your PowerPoint presentation or into your other presentations, because it's just a web page. So it's really cool for getting quick straw polls from people about how the presentation's going, or if you want to ask them a question without necessarily doing that kind of quick show of hands type thing. So we had a look at Poll Everywhere, which was quite natty. And then we rounded up by talking about how people could share their presentations after the presentation. So the idea is you can say to your audience members, if you want to check this presentation out again, you can do so by going to this website. So we looked at three main ways that people could do this. The first one being the slide share, which we'd already mentioned previously. The second one being using a YouTube slideshow. YouTube now lets you upload a series of images which you can then add a soundtrack to or a voiceover to, and then share that as a YouTube video to people. And the nice thing about that is, because YouTube works on absolutely everything, you can say to people, if you want to go here, you can watch this YouTube video. It's got the slides, it's got the audio, and it just works. So it's quite nice. And then the third and final thing we looked at about how you can share your presentations was something a bit more fancy. We actually looked at Google Sites itself. Now, Google Sites, if you're not familiar with it, is a free service offered by Google, and it lets people create an unlimited number of websites. And those websites can be public or private. So the idea is you can create a Google site and you can open it to the world, or you can just lock it down to the delegates, and you can say to them, on this Google site, on this website, you will find the presentation and links to all of the resources that were mentioned during that presentation as well. So it allows people to basically showcase their work and give the audience members added value beyond just the day of the presentation.
Please hang up and try again.
So that was the day. I've just kind of whistled through it there, but it was a 5-hour workshop. But if you do want to know a little bit more, so you can head over to bit.ly/life after PowerPoint. If you would like us to come into your business or your educational establishment to deliver a similar training session, or in fact any training session focusing on how to use free and open source tools and technologies to get things done, then all you need to do is pop over to the contact page on the main website and drop us a line. So that's about all we've got time for this week. So all that remains to say is thank you very much for listening. If you've got any questions or comments and feedback, please do drop me a line. My Twitter handle is @PaulZLearning. But otherwise, thank you very much for listening, and I hope to be talking to you again very soon.